people. We just have to get them to the polls.
And speaking of that, you guys have a primary coming up soon, August 2nd.
Yeah, August 2nd. We're in early voting right now, so I've already voted.
All right. So that, I think, will be really interesting to watch and see if all of these candidates who've been endorsed by Indivisible and the other groups do win. You know, that might tell us something about, and voter turnout, I think, will be interesting to watch as well.
Yeah, I'm hoping that we might not be 50th. If we can just move up a couple, we might be able to improve our chances.
Yes. I mean, somebody has to be 50th. I'd like to see everybody's voter turnout improve, but
I just hate to lose. And so when you're 50th in voter turnout and something so important. But I think there are issues that should be driving people to the polls, like Medicaid expansion. You talk to people, and so many people have stories that they need health care. I know that Rachel Mackey is running. She actually is raising her grandson, and they were turned down for Medicaid, but she can't get him on her insurance. And so we have people running who really care and understand what's going on the ground, and they want to help not only themselves, but they want to help the people in their communities as well. I saw a poll that Republicans, the most important issue for them voting, and this was just a Republican poll here in Tennessee, was illegal immigration. And I thought, I don't understand how illegal immigration is a big issue for Tennessee when we have people struggling with the opioid crisis. We have people that need Medicaid expansion and health care. That is, for some people, their most pressing issue. Just baffles me. But the Republican, Diane Black's running on that. So that's what she wants to run on and build her wall.
Yeah, my parents live in Ohio, and there was a candidate for governor, I believe, who was running on sanctuary cities. There are no sanctuary cities in Ohio, but she was running against them.
Yeah, that sounds like Diane Black.
All right. Well, Kristi, thank you so much for talking to us about Tennessee.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
thank you for having me.
I feel like maybe there's nowhere to go but up.
That's right. When you're 50th, you can only go up.
So we will be watching Tennessee closely to watch it go up. And listeners should stay tuned. We're recording backwards, so I've already talked to Mariah Phillips and Justin Kanew, and they're really great interviews. So I hope everyone will keep listening.
Hey, listeners. I just wanted to do a quick plug for a little something I've been working on. So my name is Tao, and I own a small crafting-related business called Nerd Bird Bakery. I'm doing a reprint of my feminist knit club tees. Are you a craftivist, or do you know of a craftivist? I'd love for you to check it out. So 100% of the profit on the sale of this tee will be donated to progressive candidates running in the midterm election, especially those running, tough races in red states. And the best part, I've teamed up with your lovely podcaster, Kelly, to make the decision on what campaign funding will go to. So if you're interested, if you're a knitter or a crafter, or if you know someone that is, please take a gander over at my website, nerdbirdmakery.com, to buy a feminist knit club tee, and let's get this blue wave rolling. Thanks, y'all.
I'm here in this segment with Mariah Phillips, who is running for Congress in Tennessee in the Tennessee 4th District. Hi, Mariah.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, Kelly.
Yeah, thanks for joining me. Let's start with just a little bit of background. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself and why you've decided to run for Congress?
Absolutely. So I am a U.S. government teacher. I teach at a public school here in Rutherford County, and so I teach my students how Washington's supposed to work, and it's not working very well. I'm a mother of 5. My husband, Derek, and I have been married for 22 years, and we have like I said, 5 fantastic kids. 3 are already grown and out of the house, and 2 are still at home. And I actually decided to run for Congress because while I was teaching my students about government, they kept saying, why doesn't it work the way that you teach us it's supposed to? And it's really because if you want to change the way it works, you've got to change the kind of people you send there. And the divisiveness in Washington has kept us from making any progress to solve any actual problems, and keeps them from getting anything done. So the divisiveness in Washington right now is truly what inspired me to run. It impacted my classroom. People were saying things about each other and to each other that was just uncharacteristic of any other time that I've seen. in teaching high school. And, if you want to change it, you got to do it from the inside out.
All right. So can you tell us a little bit about the 4th District? Where in Tennessee is this, and what are the kind of the concerns of the people there?
Tennessee's 4th Congressional District is very diverse in terms of the needs of the district. We have the suburbs of Nashville on one side, so kind of a suburban area there, and then the suburbs of Chattanooga on another side. And then in between is this vast area where it's very rural. So there are a lot of needs that we have here. It impacts our ability to get jobs. We've had hospitals that have closed in the district. But when I talk to people, whether I'm talking to people in the suburbs or whether I'm talking to people in the rural communities, we all really want and need the same things. We want to have a good paying job, so at the end of the day, we have a little money in our pocket. We want to know that we can take care of our family members when they're sick. And we want to know that our kids are going to have a better life than we've had. And so, when it comes to what are the issues across the district, there might be some differences in terms of specific issues. But overall, the most important things are access to good education, an education program that works for all students, that prepares them for the jobs of the future, and also access to health care. So, as I said before, when hospitals are closing in your community, some counties don't have a hospital at all. And so being able to take care of your educational needs and your healthcare needs are the biggest issues in the district. You need to have a healthy, educated workforce for a successful economy, and it's just better for our community overall.
Cook rates this as an R+20, which is a pretty Republican district, but it looks like it hasn't been that long since a Democrat was in office there, maybe about 10 years ago. So can you talk a little bit about what you're seeing on the ground? Does it feel like an R+20 district to you? What are you hearing from voters? How are they responding to your message?
So actually, that's a great question. When I talk to people across the district, if you ask them their straight political ideology, they generally have voted Republican the last several elections. But when you talk to people one-on-one, regardless of whether they're a Democrat or they're a Republican, what people really want is somebody that's going to fight for them. I had a really interesting conversation on Friday when I was in Bedford County. It was a man who, he's a realtor in town, and he was telling me that he had been a Democrat his entire life. And he said about 10, 12 years ago, he felt like the Democratic Party was leaving him behind, and it really didn't have anything to offer him. So he switched to the Republican Party, and he's been a Republican ever since. He even had his, Trump bumper sticker on his truck. But when he talked to me, he said, I actually feel like the Republican Party has left me behind as well. So he said, I just want somebody who's going to fight for me and is going to stand up for people like me, in Washington. And more, that's been the conversation that I've received. I think that is truly the heart of where we are in politics right now. The Tea Party wave came in 2010 and kind of flipped this area, like you had mentioned. But there are still a lot of communities where Democrats are still elected in high numbers in local elections. It's just a matter of, letting people know who's going to have their best interest at heart and who's going to stand up for them. And that's what I have been talking about this entire campaign. That's what I plan to do when I get to Washington. It's what I've done my whole life. I just want to do it on a much larger scale.
And it looks like people are responding with donations as well. You've had a couple of really strong quarters of fundraising.
Thank you. I'm proud of that. Yeah, we've had over 3,000 individual contributions, many of those coming from within the district. And it means a lot when somebody who, is struggling themselves is willing to give $5, $10, $20 of their money so that they can contribute and help us get a little further. That means so much to a campaign like ours. We are not, making millions of dollars over here, which, I don't think it's going to take millions of dollars to defeat Desjardins, but it will take money to communicate our message. And that's what we've been doing. We've been working hard to raise money, but that also means connecting to voters and earning their trust and their support. We've actually outraised Scott Desjardins, my incumbent, over the last 2 fundraising cycles. So I'm proud of that for sure.
Yeah. So speaking of connecting with voters, I looked at the events on your Facebook page, and you just have tons and tons of events and canvassing. So it looks like you guys are really out there a lot,
Yes.
talking to people. Can you talk about sort of what it's like on the ground to be campaigning in this sort of way?
So I'm definitely a very grassroots kind of girl. I enjoy talking to people. I love knocking on doors. I love making those connections and really listening to people's stories. You know, that's what I think is going to be most impactful. That's what we're missing in Washington. We're missing somebody who's connected to the people that they're supposed to represent. So this has been an incredible experience for me to do that. But I've been campaigning now for about 16 months. You know, I have great social media presence. I've, been in community events across the district, all 16 counties, many times. But even when we knock on somebody's door, it amazes me every single day how few people know about the election. And not just my election, the elections overall. There's just not a lot of awareness, which is shocking to me. And I wish that weren't true. But, that's why we keep getting out there, knocking doors, building relationships, making connections. But one of the things that's been most important, I think, for our campaign specifically is early on, I was able to connect with people in all 16 counties that were influencers in their community. And these relationships were formed just naturally, people that I met, that I connected with, that I talked to, who then were able to introduce me to their neighbors and their circles of influence. So when I go to a community, it's not necessarily me bringing an entourage of staff. It's me showing up into a community that already exists and being welcomed by the people that are there. And I think that really means something, because when I can walk in the Strawberry Festival in Ray County and, the sheriff knows me by name and the mayor knows me by name and we've had conversations and we've had connections, that shows that I feel like I'm doing the right work, because, it's not necessarily only those people that need to know me. But when I'm walking down the street and other people stop me and say, "Oh, you're Mariah Phillips. I saw your ad," or "I remember meeting you 3 months ago at this other event." So those kinds of things really mean something. I try to be present. I can't be everywhere, but I think people understand that because I make myself so available to them when I am able to come. So I try to get into every county, all 16 counties, at least once every 2 months, but I usually do more than that. It's a lot of calendaring, but it's important. I think our representatives need to be connected to our communities.
So I wanted to ask you some about some issues, and I think I want to start with education. Since you are a high school teacher, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about what you see as sort of the needs in education right now.
Absolutely. With education, the biggest issues that we have is the use of time and the mandates that come from the federal government. We need to make sure that whatever initiative we're pushing through is not necessarily a one-size-fits-all for, as a mandate for every school district, but that the ideas are there for our schools to be able to use and adapt to fit their demographic, to fit their community. And I think that's really important. I can use the example of testing, right? It's a huge subject in the education circles. Teachers want to have accountability. It's not a lack of desire for accountability. We want to make sure that we can measure our success, our performance, but the mandates that come through with testing end up actually hurting the education of the students. In a school district like the one that I work in Rutherford County, the mandates for testing require that we spend about 3 weeks out of the academic year focusing on just delivering exams. That's actually time that we should be spent focusing on teaching our students, right? So that is a huge missed opportunity that I think it's intentioned well. I think the execution, because of the mandates, actually shift the focus kind of away from education. So we just need to make sure that whatever mandates are coming through from the federal government, they actually are there to improve our students' academic performance, and they're not just one-size-fits-all mandates.
I noticed that one of the things that you talk about on your website is open spaces, and I just wondered if you could kind of expand upon that, why open spaces is a priority in your campaign.
In my district, there are several communities that rely on open spaces for tourism and to attract people to come and visit. Unfortunately, there is no industry. There hasn't been industry